Welcome back to everyone who was with us this morning, and just plain welcome to those of us who are just joining us this afternoon in the room and online. My name is Tanya Matthews. I am President and CEO of the Michigan Science Center in Detroit, Michigan, and I am also the Vice Chair of the National Assessment Governing Board. The Governing Board and the National Center for Educational Statistics work together to produce the nation's report card, also known as NAEP, N-A-E-P, and I spell it because there's a hashtag associated, hashtag NAEP Day, and I am proud to be your MC. This morning we heard about the national and state level NAEP results. And now this afternoon we will turn to the districts and hear about the results from the Trial Urban District Assessment, or TUDA. We also have one-page descriptions of the TUDA program and highlights of the results available for you as well. Those are in your folders if you are here with us this afternoon, and they can be found on our website at www.nagb.gov for those who are watching us via live stream. Now, as we did this morning, we will provide additional opportunities for Q&A with an emphasis on the question part from both our live audience and those who are joining us from the live stream. If you're joining us from the live stream, just hit the button at the bottom of your screen that says Ask a Question, and we will work to get those into the discussion as well. And for those of you who are following hashtag NAEP Day on Twitter, please join the conversation. First, I'd like to reintroduce to some and introduce to others Lynn Woodworth, the new commissioner of the National Center for Educational Statistics. We are pleased that he could join us to make brief remarks and also to introduce Peggy Carr, the associate commissioner of the Assessment Division of the National Center for Education Statistics. Dr. Carr will present the 2017 TUDA results. And with that, Commissioner Woodworth.
Good afternoon. I am the Commissioner of the National Center for Education Statistics. We are in charge of administering the NAEP every 2 years for math and reading. And that also includes the Trial Urban District Assessment, or the TUDA. The TUDA is a very important part of a NAEP because it allows us to look at the results at a specific level going down to the districts. And Dr. Carr is going to talk to you more about how those details work in a minute. The NAEP is referred to as the nation's report card. That's because the NAEP is a very important assessment that gives us information on what students can do and on what they know. The NAEP content is based on the frameworks established by the National Assessment Governing Board. The NAEP has been around since 1990 and 92 for math and reading assessments, and it's always been a paper and pencil test. So one of the things we're very excited about with the 2017 NAEP results is for the first time this test was given primarily in a digital format. And this is going to allow lots of opportunities for digging into the assessment and a lot of metadata to look at what the assessment can tell us, in addition to just how students are doing and what they know, also how they answered the questions and where they had areas that they needed some help on. The NAEP is used by teachers, principals, parents, policymakers, and researchers. So that's why it's so important. It very heavily influences our educational programs. The NAEP and the TUDA, of course, is part of NAEP, is overseen by Dr. Peggy Carr. Dr. Carr is the Associate Commissioner for Assessment at NCES. Dr. Carr has been responsible for the NAEP as well as all our international assessments, and she's supervised the NAEP for the last 16 years. She is very much an expert on large-scale assessments. I want to say that we at NCES have full faith and confidence in the scores and all the information you're going to see presented here today. And without further ado, I will turn the presentation over to Dr. Carr.
Well, I think today is our NAEP Day, and we're here to discuss the results primarily. But there's other news. We have transitioned our paper and pencil assessments to digitally based ones. You'll hear me talk about them as DBA. This is exciting for us. It's exciting because we have an opportunity to an opportunity to improve our measurements, to be more accurate in our measurements, to improve item development through digital technology. And we're going to be able to measure old constructs better and then measure constructs that we've never been able to measure before. I want to start my talk by showing you a video. I want to give you a prism into what the students saw when they took this assessment in 2017. Let's show it.
Digital technologies have come to play an increasing role in students' lives, both inside and outside of the classroom. To address this, NAEP is transitioning from paper and pencil to digitally based assessments. The National Assessment of Educational Progress, also called the Nation's Report Card, is a leader in innovation for digital large-scale assessments. NAEP experts use established best practices for delivering digital content and work continuously to enhance the student experience by introducing new question types and activities, while also enhancing the student experience through engaging digital features. Students read rich and engaging passages and have access to features like highlighting to support their understanding of texts. Students examine documents, images, and video to show their understanding of important events, trends, people, and ideas in U.S. history. To demonstrate their knowledge of geography, students analyze and interact with full-color maps, charts, photographs, and videos. Students can respond to questions in mathematics with digital tools, including rulers, calculators, and interactive graphs. They can enter mathematical symbols and notations using an on-screen keyboard. In science, students engage with simulations and apply their knowledge of scientific concepts and principles to solve problems. These and other digital technologies allow NAEP to better measure the knowledge and skills of students from across the nation. These technologies also improve NAEP's ability to make its assessments more authentic, engaging, and accessible. Assessments for the 21st century and beyond.
Indeed, exciting. Between January and March 2017, the math and reading assessments were administered on these very tablets that you saw in this video. The two assessments included nearly 300,000 fourth graders and nearly 290,000 eighth graders. While results for the nation included both public and private school students, results at the state and district level that we're going to talk about now included only public school students. National and state results, well, yes, we released those this morning. We have results for 27 school districts that participated in TUTA. Now, we only have trend results for 21 of them because 5 tutors are being welcomed today into the program. Also, I should note that we formulated a more appropriate benchmark for our tutor comparisons that I'm going to talk about today, not just the national ones. We'll share those comparisons with you too. It's called the Large City Indicator, and it contains school districts nationwide in cities with a population of at least 250K or more. The TUTA districts that we will discuss represent about 55% of students at grade 4 and about 52% of students at grade 8 in these large scales, these large city indicators that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. We report student performance on NAEP in 2 ways: scale scores and achievement levels. The math and reading assessment scores for students in 4th and 8th grade are reported on a 500-point scale, with higher scores indicating greater proficiency. They indicate what students in this country know and can do. The achievement levels, developed by the National Assessment Governing Board, give meaning to the scale. They describe standards of performance by identifying cut points on the scale that indicate students' performance in 3 standards: basic, proficient, and advanced. They indicate what students should know and be able to do. The goal is proficient level performance where students have achieved solid mastery over challenging subject matter. The history of TUDA dates back to the 2000s with a strong and productive partnership with the National Center for Education Statistics, the National Assessment Governing Board, and most notably, the Council of Great City Schools. The Council should be credited with the idea and serving as the ambassador for the program since its inception. Thank you, Mike Castley. The National Assessment Governing Board provides oversight and policy guidance for the program. And from the beginning, the board has endorsed the notion of a TUDA program. It has kept this important component of our program in the forefront and a priority for many, many years. The National Center for Education Statistics is the partner that makes it all happen. We designed the program and integrated it into our NAEP design seamlessly from the very beginning. Without NCES, the vision for a window into our large urban districts in this country would not be possible, and we would not be looking at these results that you're going to review and evaluate today. Districts volunteer to participate in TUDA. There are 42 eligible TUDA districts, and I'll say more about the inclusion of that eligibility in just a moment. This is a choice, and it's not always a pretty choice. It's a bold one for sure, to open up one's school districts and let everyone see how your students are performing. But it's always an enlightening one. And I want to thank the TUDA districts that are participating and are seeking to participate in the future in this program. The program started with a relatively small endeavor, I should point out. It was truly a trial in the beginning in 2002 with a reading only. And then we migrated a path forward starting in 2003 with both reading and math for our TUDA districts. Let me return now to the eligibility criteria that I described earlier. The districts must be in cities with populations of at least 250,000 people or more. The district must be large enough to support a 3-subject assessment cycle. That would be reading and math, and then in alternating cycles, science or writing assessment. The majority of the students in the district should be either African American or Hispanic or come from low-income families. In 2003, there were 10 districts in the TUDA program. They included Los Angeles, San Diego, Chicago, Cleveland, Boston, New York City, District of Columbia, Charlotte-Mecklenburg, Atlanta, and Houston. Today, we're going to welcome 5 additional TUDAs. They joined us in 2017. They include Guilford County, Shelby County, Fort Worth, Denver, and Clark County. Now let's turn to some results. I want to start with the large city indicator that I described earlier as an interesting and perhaps more meaningful benchmark for the TUDA comparisons. I want to orient you to this chart first. The comparisons we're seeing here are between the nation and the large city. And again, the TUDAs represent 52 to 54% of the students in large cities across the country. And you'll see a bar that indicates the baseline, either 2003 or 2002. The height of the bar indicates gain over time. you should be seeing a pattern by now. And the pattern that you should see is that students in large cities across our nation, whether it's fourth grade reading, or fourth grade math, or eighth grade reading, or eighth grade math, have made more progress, and this is significantly so, than the students on average nationwide. For example, in fourth grade mathematics, students in the nation have improved 5 points during that time period, while students in large cities improved 8 points, and that is a statistically significant difference. The other pattern that you should see here, and this is very consistent with what we see in these large-scale programs overall, more progress is made in math than in reading. We heard our panel talk a little bit more about that this morning. I want to now turn to the specific results for the tutor districts. I'm going to start with fourth grade math. These slides are fairly easy to read, but I'm going to give you an orientation. The dark blue will indicate districts showing a significant improvement in comparison to 2015. The lighter blue will show districts that are demonstrating a decline since 2015. And then in the middle, we'll have districts that have held steady and showing constant progress over time. So for fourth grade math, we see here 4 districts that have shown significant improvement since 2015: Duval County, Fresno, Miami-Dade, and San Diego. Most of the districts have held their own over this time period, but there are 4 that decline: Charlotte, Cleveland, Dallas, and Detroit. And notice that the large city indicator also declined significantly over this time period. I'm going to now turn to 8th grade math. And now that you know how to read the chart, I'll move just a little quicker. No districts improved over this time period in 8th grade math. 20 districts held their own, and 1 district declined, Philadelphia. 4th grade reading. 1 district, again, San Diego, improved over this time period. Most districts holding steady, and none declined. 8th grade reading. Albuquerque, Boston, showing improvement since 2015, most districts holding steady, and no declines. I'm going to now turn to achievement level results that I described earlier. I'm going to focus on a comparison to the large city indicator that I described to you already. I want you to focus on the 31% here. That is the percent proficient in large cities across the nation. And I'm going to show you comparisons for the districts, the 21 districts, relative to that 31%. Note that I've also included the nation in this outline, so you can see as I go through these charts where the nation is for students at or above proficient. So for this first chart here, 4th grade mathematics, we see Duval County, Charlotte-Mecklenburg, Miami-Dade, Austin, Hillsborough, Guilford County, and San Diego, scoring larger, having larger percentage of students at or above proficient in comparison to the benchmark, the large city benchmark. Most districts, 11, are comparable to that 31%, and then there are those that have percentages that are lower than the 31%. There are 9. 8th grade. Again, the large city comparison, here's 27% of the students across our nation are scoring at or above proficient. 5 districts higher than that 27%, with Charlotte-Mecklenburg being right there at the top. 8 districts comparable to, and 14 scoring lower than the 27%. 4th grade reading. Large city indicators, 28% of students in these large cities across our country are at or above proficient in fourth grade reading. There are 8 districts that scored higher than that, higher. Miami-Dade and Charlotte, and as you see here, others. 8 of them were comparable and 11 significantly below. In 8th grade reading, our last one, large city, again, is 27%, 4 districts above, 11 comparable to, and 12 significantly lower than the 27%. Gaps are always important, and we heard that discussion earlier today. And so we examine gaps amongst our students in these tutors. And as we saw this morning in the release for the states, not a lot of change in gaps. And when we do see change, it's more likely than not widening the gap. So students, white students and black students, and gaps between white and Hispanic students have widened in Jefferson and Philadelphia, New York, and LA. Chicago has narrowed its gap, and that's a good thing. But you always have to look at how the gap is narrowing. And so I should point out for one of these gap narrowings, the actual narrowing is because whites declined. I want to end my description of the results where I started and say a little bit about the digitally based assessments. For those of you who missed it, you have a treat. I'm going to show you a nice video again today. As I indicated, we have a window into not just what the student got right or wrong, but something about their process and how they achieved that response. I want to first show you a passage that was presented to our students, a reading comprehension passage. And this is the same passage that we administered in 2015. But as I indicated this morning, it's prettier. It's in color. And it looks more like the authentic passage where we found this particular one. And we're able to track students. And are they looking at page 1 or page 2 or page 3? So we can tell exactly where they are in the passage and how long they stay there. And do they go back and forth? Very, very interesting, very diagnostic. We're also able to track how they go through the questions. For every passage we have in NAEP, we always have about 10 questions, most of them multiple choice, but 2 of them are constructed response questions. We ask students to write a little essay, a short constructed response. And we're able to track that as well in this new digitally based assessment. So I want to tell you what you're going to see, because it's going to be in the report card, and my guess is that you'll play it over and over and over again. This is what I call the Beehive Demonstration. It's a selection of about 600 students who were asked to complete or to respond to this passage, and we kind of track them through. We have no idea who they are because of privacy and confidentiality. Once we leave there, we can't identify them. But we do know what they did. What you're going to see here is these 600 students meandering through the passage, going from page 1 to page 2, and sometimes not even reading the whole passage and going right to the items, or vice versa, going right to the items and then going back to the passage, all sorts of ways of arriving at their answers. It's very intriguing, very diagnostic. Let's see it. Here they are. They're starting. And you can see them migrating, going to page 2, and oh, look, some of them are already going to the items. Maybe that's good, maybe not, who knows? Would it not be interesting to be able to bifurcate these data by low-performing versus high-performing students and put some color in there so you can see what's going on. Or maybe it's just girls and boys that you're interested in, pink and blue. And you can examine how students arrived at their answer and develop some hypotheses about what this means. This is a game changer for the program. And I'm very pleased to say that the large-scale assessment industry will benefit from what we have learned and what we're now doing in NAEP. Thank you. More on the nation's report card. I'm going to now take questions. We have time for questions, just a few questions.
Okay, well, we're going to start with an online question, okay, Dr. Carr?
Yes.
This is a question from Jerry Kettenbach at the University of Missouri. He writes, did you look at charter school performance relative to district performance? If so, did you notice any global differences?
Yes, we did. Charter schools are public schools, and they're in our state data, the data that I shared with you this morning. And they're also in these TUDA data that we're sharing with you now, but it depends. If the TUDA has the charter school as part of its accountability, it's not an independent charter school, and it reports its accountability up through the TUDA, then they're in these data that I shared with you today. If they're not here. So yes, we do know how charter schools are performing. I can't tell you precisely for every individual TUDA, but I can tell you in general for the national data that they're on par. They actually have been closing the gap over time, and I think there's only one grade subject combination in which they're significantly lower. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, I'm Michael McQuarrie on the board of San Diego Unified in California. This morning we heard from Florida, and they talked about the students who scored so well in the fourth grade exam. So many of them had an early start, and they were tracked from kindergarten, so they had the more rigorous curriculum from kindergarten, and that's where they scored. They figured that was a reason for scoring so well in the fourth grade. I'm wondering, are we doing cohort studies? I know there is some of that data is probably in the trend, but how do we handle the cohorts and how students are doing over time?
Well, that's a good question. Although we are reporting on trends, this is not a longitudinal study. We do not track students from time 1 to time 2, although we can think about it as a cohort study because we measure a cohort and then we go back and we measure them again sometimes later. So in that way, you can sort of think about it as a cohort analysis, but not a longitudinal one. But NAEP is innovative. We're now linking our assessment with other longitudinal studies within the National Center for Education Statistics. Perhaps you've heard of ECHOS, or the Early Childhood Longitudinal Study. We've done linking with that assessment with the cooperation of my colleagues for at least 2 cycles now. Those results are available if people are interested in the database. Very interesting finding. So thank you for your question.
Hi, Hannah Putman, National Council on Teacher Quality. In the trends that you've seen either on the state or the TUDA level, have you seen any trends between the types of state policies for training for new teachers or in the trends of what licensure exams are finding and the quality of how students are performing on NAEP?
An excellent question. I get it all the time. NAEP is not designed to evaluate policy or in the direct way that I think that you're describing, or curriculum, but we do a lot of surveying of teachers, of students and their administrators, and there's just a wealth of data that researchers such as you can use to generate hypotheses with these data, and I just welcome you to do that. The NAEP Data Explorer is a wonderful tool for doing that, but we also have restricted use data sets that allow you to do more sophisticated analysis such as HLM or Liserow analysis that can get you closer to a cause and effect. But that's not our job. We're here to put these data out, to provide the context with these rich survey questions so that you can generate these hypotheses. There's a question here, I think.
Thank you. So about 35 years ago today, the Nation at Risk study came out. So how can we? The data is kind of discouraging, where we see we're not improving as much as we like. How can we take this back to our districts, to our states, to improve the education system?
Oh, these are wonderful questions that help us ponder these important dilemmas. So what first comes to mind? You said 35 years ago. This doesn't go quite back that far, but we do have something that does go back that far. It's called a long-term trend assessment for 9-year-olds and 13-year-olds and 17-year-olds. And there's some very interesting patterns in there, and you're absolutely right. We are not where we want to be, but there has been some tremendous progress made. Where blacks and Hispanics, mostly blacks, the Hispanic data wasn't as strong back when we first started, where they're scoring now is far above where they were scoring in the beginning. And although the gap has not closed as much as we would like, they're scoring where the white students were back in the early 70s. So lots of progress has been made, and a lot of progress has to be made to narrow these gaps. What I can say about the trends that we're looking at today is that in the early 2000s or so, we saw exactly what we wanted to see, everyone making progress, whites and blacks and Hispanics. In order to do what you suggest to narrow the gap, the bottom of the distribution has to come up quicker, and that's exactly what we were seeing in those days. But yes, progress has slowed, and we're not seeing the gaps close in the way that we would like, or close mostly at all in many of the districts and states. Hard questions to answer, for sure.
Another
one
question
more online.
Yeah, from the live stream. Is the Beehive data available to the public? If so, does it include the results, i.e., as the students work their way through the problems, does the data indicate the students' final responses? That's from April Smith.
Well,
Can't tell where
April,
she's from.
I know the answer to the first part of your question. Yes, it is on our website. It is there, and you can analyze these data for yourself. But I don't know if the results for the Beehive are actually there. We can get that information to you. The fact that I don't know suggests that probably not. Okay, thank you. Exciting times.
Thank you, Dr. Carr. And clearly you are already becoming an internet assessment superhero, as we have now coined the Beehive to talk about that remarkable data and what we're able to do with it. And shout out to all of the studiers, the practitioners, the graduate students in the room, and also watching us online. As we get these questions that we cannot yet answer, I want to say one of the things that the National Assessment Governing Board and NCES, we are so proud of our data. We like to share it with people who want to analyze it, to answer these questions that we haven't actually dug into. And one of the nice things about having a partner who is dedicated to the data and agnostic about the data is that we then become a really good partner for those who want to dig into it and find out underlying questions. And I also really appreciated the question of, okay, TikTok, 35 years, so let's keep going. And I think that this data helps us get past some of those initial stages of guessing and moving right into getting into some action items.